y'all? Welcome back to the Why We Move podcast. This is official season 2, episode 1 or 2. I've already recorded like a couple, so I'm sorry. But regardless of it, it's still a very special episode, y'all, because we have the one and only Keila Perez, fantastic dancer, fantastic person, I'd say, and an amazing performer, artist. Honestly, you do it all. So I'm going to let you take the mic and introduce yourself. Just tell the crowd who you are and maybe just a little background.
Great. My name is Keila Perez Vega. I'm a Philly-based artist. I grew up in North Jersey, came to Philly around 2011. I went to the University of the Arts for dance. I got my BFA in dance. And that's kind of where it all started for me. But right now I live in South Philly. I Latin dance. I am also involved in a lot of other nonprofits in marketing and events. I also have my own nonprofit in the arts called Artsy. And I am a contemporary dancer. I dance for a dance company in South Philly.
Cool. I didn't know the Artsy Philly was a 501c. That's cool. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. Awesome. We'll definitely shout out to Artsy Philly because you guys are doing some cool stuff.
Thank you.
So let's start with some questions.
Ooh.
You ready? I always start these podcasts with basically the most vague question ever, which is sharing your journey with Latin dance. Of course, the title of the podcast, the name of the podcast is called Why We Move. So let me know, why do you move, Keila?
Absolutely. Why do I move? I think it's the one thing that makes me feel the most grounded. I started with more classical styles of dance, and still do it. Jazz, ballet, modern, contemporary. My first love, I always say, is contemporary modern dance. I love the freedom of it, the self-expression, how, it's like how we think about movement, how we can be inspiring, analytical, how we can, portray concepts and emotion. And then I always say my second love was Latin dance. And for that, I've just enjoyed the connection with people. I love the connection with the music, the playfulness of it. And that's how I've fallen in love with Latin dance.
And so how long have you been Latin dancing comparatively to contemporary dancing?
Yeah, so contemporary, I started contemporary in high school. I was introduced to modern and contemporary art forms and training. As far as Latin dance, it's kind of a funny story. In college, I believe I was a junior, and someone came up to me knowing I was Puerto Rican and was like, "You must know how to salsa." And I was like, "I don't, but I know how to dance." And they were looking for someone to join the salsa club and kind of become a member and maybe have a more leadership role. So I was like, why not? I think I can figure it out. Little did I know there's much more training involved to just thinking you know how to salsa dance. Well, that's when I started. Fairly quickly, I, took classes. I went a lot social dancing, and that's where I felt like I learned the most. And then from there kind of really piqued my interest, and I took it more seriously in like actually learning how to salsa bachata dance.
Awesome. And are there any other styles besides contemporary salsa and bachata that you like to dance?
No. I mean, I like other styles. I think those are the ones I'm most proficient at. But I mean, do I like a hip hop class? Of course. A jazz class. Ballet, not so much. I love doing it, but you will never see me on stage. It's a very hard thing to master. Honestly. But I love the fundamentals of it. And I like the routine and the repetition of the kind of like the drills.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much respect for ballet dancers. Honestly, like the amount of practice that people put in is insane.
Insane. Yeah. And the facility and wow, kudos to them.
So I'm curious to kind of follow up on this journey of yours into Latin dancing. And it's interesting that you started in contemporary and moved into Latin dancing. In my head, you've always been a Latin dancer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, like you're just so excellent. You're super good. And I guess now that I think about it, like in your performances, I do see a lot of contemporary like motivation or inspiration, I think, in your movements, which I think is awesome. I think it's unique in the sense that you're very flowy with your movements, But what was that switch for you? Like why, I know besides like somebody asking you, what's called, like you wanted, or if you knew salsa, or it kind of assumed, but why Latin dancing versus other dancing?
Yeah. So when I first started Latin dancing, I went social dancing. And for me, going to school, getting my bachelor's in like fine arts and dance, you know, it's like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. dancing and training and being so critical about yourself, about your body, about your movements, that Latin dance was my escape of that. Sometimes I feel like taking it super seriously and professionally, you kind of lose sight of why you love it. And you kind of lose sight in what you love about yourself in dancing. And I found that again in social dancing. So for me, it was my night escape in trying to connect with why I fell in love with it in the first place.
Beautiful, beautiful. So it's interesting that you like to go social dancing, and like I'm gonna bring in this. This is not on the question list, and okay. I'm here. Here's your pop quiz question. Okay. In fact, somebody, funny enough, reached out to me to talk about this topic, and I was thinking, like, who out of my friends, who out of the people who I'm interested in getting on this podcast has this experience? And I was thinking as you were speaking, I was like, duh, like Keila and her husband, because. So this is where I'll preface the information. Your husband, he dances or no?
He dances like at the club, at a rave.
Okay,
loves to dance.
Love that.
Formal training, no.
Word. So somebody had reached out to me asking, can I go over the topic with somebody or maybe a couple at the same time about the relationship that you have with your partner who doesn't dance? And maybe, I'll let you just kind of go into it there, but I have some follow-up questions for you.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. So when I met Pradhan, my husband, we met very young. We were 15. That's when we started dating. And he knew I was a dancer from the get-go. So I think he loved that I performed and loved that was my passion. Latin dance then came around a little later, and that's very different, right? You're like having a connection with someone else. And to someone who's not familiar or from an outsider perspective, it's like, wow, it's really close. There's chemistry, that can be very off-putting or intimidating for a partner, and I rightfully so. I think in that comes a lot of communication. I think also explaining that a lot of it is very respectful when done right. That the dance is, is a give and take, is a communication. It's two people flowing together, and outside of that, it's just a dance. And that has been very important conversations we had to have in the beginning. Because from an outsider, it's like, oh, you're going out in the middle of the night, these things don't start till 11 midnight. Like who dances at that hour except us, right? Right? On a Tuesday or Monday.
Yeah. What does what's his name? Ted from How I Met Your Mother says? It's like nothing good happens after 11 p.m. or something like that. Yeah,
it's probably nothing good after 10. I don't 10, know. Yeah. So I think that became really important. I do think because my other careers are rooted in dance. There was he has this mad respect that, I take it seriously in that way, that for me, it is dance and I am in love with dance and not falling in love with maybe other things of the social environment. But yes, I think it does require a lot of communication. And I will say there was a shift that the second I took it a little more serious, where I had a dance partner and I was competing, then that kind of helped the conversations we were having, because it was no longer maybe something that I was doing to escape, the tedious work. It was more so I'm also taking this very seriously and I'm treating it like another craft. So that shifted. But I've also experienced a lot of friends who have the similar relationship, but they're starting a new relationship and the person is finding out that they social dance. And I know that could be a very different dynamic when you haven't built trust yet. So I do think trust is very important. And just being super transparent and, inviting them into your world. You'll see put on every so often out social dancing minimally with me. He'll be in the corner drinking, maybe have a dance or two with me. And then he'll be like, that was cool. I'm going to go home.
That's so funny.
And it's important. I think also my biggest thing is, as I have a passion in social dance and Latin dance, it's important that my partner have another passion as well in order for them to kind of relate. His passion, he loves music. He loves EDM music. He loves concerts, festivals. He's really into that DJ scene. So it's fun to see him get excited about going to a concert, going to a festival, and him likewise seeing me get excited to go to a congress, to a social night out.
That's beautiful. There's so many things, like so many layers I think that we can pull apart. I'd love to get into the weeds of it, but I think I'm going to try to focus these questions a little more to get the most value, because I think you already have been giving a lot of value and you've kind of answered two more of these questions. But to follow up on the beginning of what you were saying with how, who you have friends who are getting into relationships with, other people who aren't dancers who maybe just have not experienced that. Could you give any insight, any tips or tricks, or even just like communication styles that you've practiced with your husband and maybe, other friends that have talked to you about it that can help people who are in the similar situation?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest advice is invite them to a class, have them journey. Maybe it won't be as intense of a journey or interest, but I think half the time when there was a shift when he took a class and he's like, wow, that was hard. And I can't believe the amount of thinking a lead has to do in order to lead a follower. And I think, if you invite them into your world, it becomes easier, and there's some sort of, they can relate all of a sudden, especially if it's something they've never experienced before. I think it's a very different watching people social dance and taking a class and trying to do the same thing. You kind of realize, there's a lot of nervous guys out there trying to ask a girl to dance, and likewise, girls are still trying to figure it out. So I think it levels the playing field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to add on to that, an interesting thought is with allowing your partner or whoever you're seeing to come into your world. I like how you said, open up your world. I think you also have to be open enough to allow them to be let in. You know what I mean? Much like a crossbody lead and a salsa, like you can suggest, but you can't force the person. And so similarly, I think I've had maybe partners in the past who I've had that struggle with personally, where, it's not like that person wasn't dancing at the time that I was dancing. We actually met dancing, but I was more heavy into the dance world than she was. And it just became problematic because there was no communication, and that was my fault, and I think that was both of our faults for that matter. But I think to that point, I've learned that, I think I need to be open to bringing this person in as well as that person needs to be open to being in, I guess. And it was just a communication style that I wasn't used to, but I like what you said, and I agree with what you say, is being able to have that open-ended communication, because it is a sensual dance. Like, regardless if it's salsa, if it's bachata, if it's zouk, if it's kizomba, and like you can rank them however you want in your head, but it really is a different world out there. And I think there's also like a misconception about dancing. And I think I kind of want to ask you this follow-up question about it, is that, along with topics or bringing these kinds of conversations up with your partner, I think I got, in the past, I've gotten a lot of not whiplash per se, but just like judgment from folks who are just like, maybe my coworkers or my friends or my family members who just didn't maybe understand it. Were like, oh, he's going out at 10 p.m. Like he's looking for some tail. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, I'm actually going, I'm sweating like crazy. I'm drinking a lot of water. Right. I'm moving my body to like express myself. But what would be like some common misconceptions that you think people have that we can clarify here on this episode?
Yeah.
About dancing.
I agree. On the flip side, mine was the comments, maybe not comments, but I knew people were thinking it like, oh, she's married. What is she doing? Or she's in a long-term relationship, stuff like that. I think specifically more sensual bachata. I think I fell in love with that style of dance rather quickly. And a lot of it, when done right, I mentioned it before, is very respectful and allows space. I mean, I do think in proximity, compared to like how close you stand to someone in the workplace, yes, it is closer, but in that there is space to give the follower pathways to express and then the leaders to lead. I think when not done right, a seasoned eye can see when it's not tasteful. But I do think it's, a lot of the moves, unless I'm going to town and just wiggling my body, it is led. And I think a lot of those moves are actually very difficult to be led. So someone who's possibly has the wrong intention, usually are not leading those moves really correctly or seamlessly. So, I think when you see someone dancing those styles, it's actually they're like en route or trying to master that craft. And when you put it that way, it's less of, you're out there trying to get some numbers, and same with the girl. So it's harder than it makes it look easy, and it looks fun and it looks sensual, but it's actually really hard. And once you've mastered it a bit, then you can find playfulness and ease and connection and all that stuff. And then it's a really special moment with you and that partner. But other than that, it's a journey to get there, and if you're in it for just the phone numbers, you're in it for a long time trying to get there,
Yeah, that's very true. I had an episode in season 1 with my friend Jose from Portland, who had been dancing for close to, I think, 15 years now, maybe over a decade. I might be wrong. Sorry, Jose. He is very adamant about this. And I think I am as well, because he says it himself. He says, if you're looking to go and touch a person, don't go dancing. Like, if that's your sole intention is to just find connection physically for your own pleasure, wrong reasons. I think there's, it's kind of like a touchy topic, because it's not like you're trying to slap somebody's hand and be like, no, you can absolutely not do that, because obviously it's dance, like it's going to happen. But I think kind of to echo what you're saying, is for the wrong reasons. It's like you're going to spend a lot of time wasting other people's time, wasting your time, not having fun, just like in your brain, just chasing, that you're just not going to have a good time, and part of this podcast and what I like to, hound on, and I will shout it from the rooftops in every single episode, is to is to eradicate any kind of sexual harassment, any kind of battery, any kind of assault that's happening on the dance floor, because it is happening, unfortunately. For those who are listening, who are new or who are interested in dancing, just a heads up, you're getting into a crazy world. It's not like, it is a very beautiful world, but it's also has its bounds, has its pros and cons, just like anything else. Right. And so to kind of start to weave into that conversation about, the not so good parts of dance, the bad and the ugly per se. And this is also not a question on the script, so I know I'm throwing you in on the field there. But do you have any tips, or actually any piece of advice for folks who do not know so much about the dance scene, so that they can be best prepared and be cautious? And then also on the flip side, do you have anything that you'd like to say for the folks who are doing that kind of stuff, who might be listening right now?
Yeah.
Call them out.
Yeah, call them out. I think as followers, we say this a lot in class, but you'd be surprised how much your frame can be your personal space and your personal bubble. I think the way you present yourself is really important when you enter a dance. It also sets boundaries. I think sometimes I hear like, he led me through that, like I didn't have a choice. And I think you always do have a choice, of how close you want to be with your partner. And it can still be an awesome dance with more distance. It can, you can follow moves, and even as simple, it doesn't have to be super sexual, like dipping so back. Like some people don't like being dipped 10,000 times. And he's like, he just dipped me and kept dipping me and kept dipping, and my back hurts. Like, it's like, yeah, I get that, and I think, for leads, every thing like that is you are carving, presenting something and then she is accepting, and not all things need to be accepted, and I think that's, it's up to the leader to have that sensibility of, okay, this is, she wants more space for X, Y, and Z reasons. We're not sure, and just respecting those boundaries. But knowing that followers, you have that power as well, that you can have space. And same with leaders. I mean, I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes it's pinpointed at, the leads, but I can imagine, maybe, a lead's trying to lead something and in your hands, the follower is going crazy doing other things. And it's, you feel like it's out of your control as well.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And amen to that. Like, it happens all over. And I think it's so unfortunate that it's 2024 and this is still happening, but I also do like what you said with the lead, as far, if we're talking about leads in the sense, it's not a force, right? I think what I remember way back when I first started taking classes it was explained to me as it's a firm, or it's a more, it's a firm recommendation, but it's not a necessary thing. It's not an obligation. That's what it was. It was a firm recommendation, but not an obligation to do. And I think when you think about it that way, you have much more control. And especially, with what you're talking about with your frame, like that's a no, like if we take apart dance and we like really, take out all the nuances of it being surrounded by music, it's so loud, it's nonverbal, it's usually with strangers. You kind of take away parts of control that I think you usually have in regular life, which is your voice, which is very powerful. But your frame, I think what you just said and echo that is, that's your no. Like you can say no to that. You can say yes just as well as you can say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, the way you present yourself and you can tell out social dancing once you've been out a while. Like the funniest comment I bring up, my husband came out and he's like, I can tell those people who are serious. They have the sweat towel in their back pocket. They're drinking water. They are out there. Like, I thought you were out there, on a Monday night to have fun. No, you guys are serious. He was like, this is too much for a Monday night, like too much thinking. And it's true. Like, I think you can tell intention once you're around it more often. And if not, be out enough and you would be able to pick them out. And also like saying, if you feel uncomfortable, no to a dance from the beginning. It's very often vice versa. Like I love asking people to dance and I love leads asking me to dance as well. But depending whether you're tired or whatnot, like you can say no respectfully. And I think without feeling you like, and sometimes I've been said no plenty of times. And at first, like I was offended. I was like, I can't believe they didn't want to dance. Like I just want to dance, but who knows, and I think we have to respect those boundaries and not, forcing someone on the dance floor or X, Y, and Z. But there's a lot of choice that can happen. Social dancing, you just need to know that you have the right to exercise those.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think it's very important for people listening that also on the flip side, for those who are pushing past the no's, is like to recognize that and really, if you can tell when somebody's uncomfortable. So like, don't be ignorant, like take the sign. No means no, even if it's coming from your frame, from your follows frame, like, or your leads frame, something, it could be as simple like hand placement, and that person grabs your hand and like moves it away or slides their hand underneath you in follow or whatever, or in shadow position or whatnot. It's like, pick up on these hints. Like we're adults, we're not we're not children. We can actually comprehend what's going on in our lives. So,
can I say like a side? I just, a story kind of popped up in my head.
Please share it.
Talking about, I was new to the scene, and at a Congress, I was like super excited, to be there. One of my first Congresses, and I was having fun, and then I had a great dance with someone, and they were like, "Hey, would you like?" I'm thinking, once again, super naive looking back at it, but just hopefully, if this resonates for someone who's new to the scene, this is the purpose of me sharing. They're like, "Oh, do you want to like grab a drink?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And then, lo and behold, we're in an elevator. And I was like, this does not feel right. And I think, I think sometimes there's a culture possibly in these congresses that, it's so easy. Like you could be pre-gaming in your room upstairs. And, but yeah, there's a lot of people who, we had a great dance and took it the wrong way, and, luckily we ran into his roommate and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going back downstairs. So there was and he was like, no, come back. I was like, no, I need to go. But awesome. I think it says just being aware that, I've also met amazing people and built long-term, really fruitful friendships through social dancing. So not everyone out there, you want to see both ends, but tread carefully.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're really excited in the beginning. We always say when you catch the salsa bachata bug, those people are out all the time. You're like, oh, they must have just started dancing. They have all this energy.
For real. Yeah. I miss those days for sure. Nowadays I'm just like, oh man, I could really go dancing, but I just can't wait to sleep.
I'm in my pajamas already.
I know. Yeah, for real.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's very important for everybody listening. Not only beginners or people who are interested, but also experts and people who have been dancing for a while. It's a good reminder. It's kind of similar to going back to your basics. It's never too late to go to a basics class ever. You always learn something new. I think it's similar to here. You just go back to your foundation. Let's start new. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to, I kind of want to talk on this because I think this is just you are a prime example of somebody who is very cognizant of what's happening around them and looks out for people. I noticed you, when you're out social dancing, you really put a lot of energy and a lot of intention behind every dance that you partake in. And I really appreciate that because I, for the longest time, could never, just get out of my head. It's a game of chess, with dancing, you're just okay, I got to put this pawn here and then the knight and then and then I got to spin and then what's going to come after the spin. And then, and it's 30 different hamsters in my brain, just working. And I could not just get in my body and actually connect with people. And something that switched for me, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, maybe, was actually paying attention and making eye contact. Mm-hmm. Oops. And also just giving the intention of presence there. And so again, I noticed that in you when you dance. And what is that experience for you? And maybe could you go into why you like to give that energy?
Yeah. I'll start with the last question is why I like to give that energy. It's hard to lead. And I think I, as a follower, because I am not, making these strong recommendations for the dance, I think being present and just having this level of whatever you give, I will attempt my hardest to follow and have fun with you in the process. So I think, for example, I love dancing with people who are just starting, beginners. I think there's just this really eagerness and fire in them. But I equally know how nerve-wracking it is. And, but if I can be there, just encouraging them through my movement, and us, whatever, if we mess up together, we mess up, it's just a social dance. I think sometimes, because we want to get better, we take it so seriously. And I am that all the time. I feel like I need to remind myself that, it is this experience you're uniquely having with this other person, and it's okay. It's not that deep type of thing. And so I do like staying present because that's my favorite part about social dance. Every social dance is a special little nugget, and everyone's connection is very different. And I can be dancing with that same person next week, and the way we connect with the music is differently. The way we decide to show up for that dance is different, depending how we are. So I think it's really important to give your full attention. I mean, you've committed, it's not that long. It's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes of your life. And
or 7 if it's a salsa.
It's true. Yeah. And with the band, forget it.
Yeah. All night.
So yeah, I think it's my favorite thing about social dancing is this idea of without speaking, what we can create together, and without me meeting this person possibly prior or practicing with them, like how magical it is that through these signals that we've learned separately, we can like make a dance together, and how each dance is different. So I think just enjoying the ride. It's like getting on a roller coaster ride. Like, all right, let's go. And then seeing where it takes you.
I like that. I love that a lot. It's very interesting because a lot of people I noticed when dancing, and I've referenced this in previous podcasts, I won't go too crazy deep into it, but just in the light of the conversation, I'm sure you've noticed it as well. Like people will be looking out, people looking down on their feet. And like, these are also like people who have been dancing for a long time too, you know, or like they'll look at another person waiting for the song to be over. It's like, come on, dog. Like you're in this moment right now. This will never probably happen again. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe sometimes the songs are on repeat or whatever, but even at that moment, like that moment is so special. It's, why are you going to waste it distracted? You know, why not be present with your person?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think my biggest thing is I have a lot of students saying like, well, one thing Pranam was like, when I dance with someone, where do you look? Like, and he was like, I just like looked at her, looked up sideways, and I did that in rotation. I was just like so nervous. And I was like, I get it, you know, but like equally, like when you have a conversation with someone, you know, like, you know, I think anything that feels organic, allow to happen. But I think once again, if you're authentically yourself, that shows up in the dance as well as in a conversation. So, I think don't force anything, but it just show up. I think show up for that person and show them that, you know, their time, your time is valuable. Sorry.
Right. That's absolutely correct. It's like the most precious currency we have on this earth. And you said it so beautifully, so elegant. So thank you. Let's move on. I'd like to understand a little bit more about your background. So you're full Puerto Rican?
Yes. Yeah.
And did you grow up dancing at all in family get-togethers? Or are you more cultural in that way or no?
In get-togethers, yeah. Like my first dance was the merengue with my dad.
Nice. That's awesome.
But as far as Latin dance, that was like probably the extent that I've done. And you know, the two-step, and we all think we know how to salsa at a family party type of thing. So grew up around a lot of music, but never like formal training at a young age for Latin dance.
Gotcha. That's funny that you say that, because I look at videos of myself at parties and I'm just like, God, I'm so embarrassed. This is so cringy.
Yeah. Hey, but it's, you know, like when it's amongst family and culture, you know, the way the music moves you, it moves you, you know?
Absolutely. That's a great way to say it. I like that reframe. I'm just going to forgive myself from now on.
burn the videos.
Yeah, or that. I'll definitely do that. You can find, probably my mom won't do that, but shout out, Mom, because I love you for taking all those memories. I'm curious, do you feel connected with the music that you dance with? Maybe in this case, more Latin style. Do you feel like you have a connection with your culture, with your roots when you dance it? Or do you feel like it's a totally different experience?
No, I feel very connected. I think that's one of the other things that made me fall in love with it. I felt like I took like a few steps back when I went to college. You know, I didn't have my family around. I also didn't have a lot of friends who spoke Spanish. So I just felt very disconnected from, you know, my family friends and the culture and all of that I was so used to growing up. And when I went to Latin dance, it was like, like a taste of home, like when you got your mom's home cooking type of thing. So
good.
Yeah, right. So for me, it was like very nostalgic. And a lot of songs I grew up listening to. And and it definitely like the music makes you move a certain way. So I definitely feel like it reignited something in me. And I just like didn't know how to express, like being an artist, like a dancer in other art forms. I felt like I could express myself, but never at that capacity. So for me, it's been very special to train, to explore, to dance in Latin dance, because I hold it really close to my heart.
That's awesome. I think I have a similar experience. I grew up dancing in family parties, you know, and I think I didn't get into social dancing until I was 21. And it legitimately happened in Mexico with my cousin Chewy, who just brought me out just because he did it himself, and he'd been doing it for like 2 years, and was like, we're kind of around the same age. So he's like, hey, let's go out, let's have some drinks, let's have some fun, let's go dance. And I was like, cool. And then I got out to the dance floor, and this was in Plaza Chapultepec, where in Mexico they have, I think it's a college town where a lot of students will just on a random Monday night in the middle of the road, be it like one of those walking passageways, we'll just put up a DJ will show up with some speakers, play music, and people will dance all night. And I showed up, and I was so embarrassed because he pushed me out to the dance floor and was like, "Hey, try it." I'm like, "What do you mean try it?" Like, I'm just like, no, like I'm already shy. I was kind of a shy boy back before I guess I started dancing. But this girl who just had the most patience with me, so kind, and just like helped me just like get out of my shell in that way. But gave me such an embarrassing, experience and memory that I still hold on, dearly to this life. I'm like reminded of it with my cousin. Every time I visit, he's just like, "Hey, you remember when you sucked?" And I was like,
do I? Yes, I guess.
Yeah, I do. I do. And I'm still learning, but it's interesting because I walked away from that experience so grateful because I learned it, or I had it in Mexico, where I was like really deeply rooted in my culture. And so I obviously didn't stay in Mexico. I came back to the States, but I took that kind of feeling with me and how I connect with music to now bring it with me every time I go out, every time I sing a song, every time I move my body, or I feel like a certain, instrument hit a certain way. It just like reminds me of home and reminds me of Mexico. And so I think it's a beautiful thing to have that connection. And I think it's not, what we're talking about isn't completely, what's the term? Isolated to folks who have Latin backgrounds. I think you can dance all these different styles and be connected in the same ways, and still have that culture in you. It's just about experiencing it and choosing to experience it. So anyways, just wanted to share that little note. I think it's a very beautiful thing that you do it as well.
I agree.
Anything you want to share on that?
No, that was beautifully said.
Okay, thank you. Hey. Yo, shout out to Anthony, by the way, behind the podcast, gear and everything. He's really been helping me out. Shout out to you, bro. Like, honestly, you've come in super clutch. So I appreciate you. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about some more social dancing stuff. And remind me again, how long have you been dancing? Completely, totally contemporary and
how old am I? I started when I was like 8. Possibly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So
8,
you've got
10,
some,
yeah.
you put some years.
Doesn't feel like that sometimes, but yeah, thank you.
It's a very humbling experience, I'm sure, when you like go and you like mess up and you're like, whoa. I definitely feel that. What do you believe is the key to becoming a better social dancer? And I'll follow up with this. Are there any particular like habits, hobbies, practices, trainings that you recommend for continuous kind of improvement?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it briefly before, but always going back to your fundamentals is so important. And especially when you're eager to get better, or you see something out on social dancing or on Instagram, it's so easy to be like, I want to look like that, and I'm going to do that right now, and sometimes we don't we choose to forget like that they took a long time to get there, and I think they took a long time for it to look easy, and fundamentals are so important. I remember super humbling experience, someone who's trained in school, and, like I feel like I have a pretty good awareness of my body, and I was dancing for a few years, and I started competing with Darlin for more, competitive stuff. And we were meeting with some coaches, and they were ripping apart my basic. And I was like, my basic? We're here to talk about my basic. And I was like, wow, I really thought I was good. And it's just like, and I think, I had potential, and I think it just comes down to that. Like the other day I was telling my student, I'm working on my frame. And I was like, how humbling that is for me to tell you that I need to work on my frame.
That's also very vulnerable too.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like, and here you are asking for me to teach you something, So I do think it's important, a strong foundation, like anything, just structurally, if you were to like build a structure, like strong foundation is super important, and always revisiting back to that. I do think in more of my classical training, that's how we train. Like before rehearsal, we are taking an hour and a half class. We are taking ballet class. What is a ballet class? The bar is the same. Like the exercises are exactly the same. And I think you see that across different disciplines. Like the football players are doing probably the same drills differently. So I think sometimes I would tell people, I remind people it's the same with dance. You know, I think going back to your foundation will better help you express yourself in more intermediate, advanced patterns and or concepts. So that's like my biggest advice. And never being like, don't think that's like a downgrade, trying to like go to a beginner class, going back to foundations. My favorite part is dancing with beginners for that reason, because it's just like a really fresh reminder that first, we all started somewhere, and two, we can even work on that even better. Like no one has mastered. I mean, you can approach mastery, but I think the reason I love dance is because there's no one perfect thing. Everyone's body's different. Everyone moves differently. Everyone expresses themselves differently. So it's not so perfect, you know, and I can always strive to do better.
Amen. I think to your point, it's art, you know, art cannot be, it's not science. I mean, it is science in a way, but it's uncontrolled. It's chaotic. It's both beautiful and both ugly. It's both energetic and both calm. It's everything in between. And like art is ultimately what you make it. And I remember highlighting this on this topic on a previous podcast episode, but there are folks out there who I think probably have too big of a head in that regard. And I think they're not really doing dance justice, you know, because they're telling you this is the right way to do it. And yes, there are like, I'm going to preface this with saying like, there is a good basic, there is a good foundation in how you spin and how you distribute your body and how you dip and everything. Right. But for folks who I think are so dead set on like, this is perfection, this is like what you need to do. Like, come on, there's gray lines everywhere in dance.
Absolutely. And to that point, I just telling this to someone the other day, I was like, you know, as a follower, I have the delight of like dancing with a lot of leads and experiencing the same lead, but 10 different ways. And I will say in many of those instances, they're all effective. They're all very clear, but everyone can do it a little differently, you know? So yes, there are proficient and very clear ways to do things, but depending on your school or like how you've trained or what works for you and your partner, you know, there's different ways that something can be led. And I think that goes to expanding your mind. You know, if you're like doing the same thing all the time and someone introduces a new way to do it, then you're like, oh, wow. Okay. Like being open-minded to that experience and that change and what that could look like in your social dance.
Absolutely. Completely agree. I think it's like practicing openness, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Vulnerability per se. Right. In each season that I'm shooting these episodes on, I'm trying to highlight different cities. And so that I'm traveling to all these different cities to highlight, again, dancers, performers, instructors, DJs, organizers, and anybody involved in the dancing. And of course, want to relate it back to the city where I'm in. So currently we're in Philadelphia. This is where I live. This is where you live. And I'm curious, what has been the most memorable experiences for you out on the dance floor, social dancing here in Philadelphia? So that way, people who are listening, if you're traveling, you know, this is for everybody, really. If you're going to travel to Philadelphia, you know, where can you recommend places? Where are the best places to go? Kind of describe that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like, well, I mean, where to go? I mean, usually every night of the week, there's usually something going on, whether it's like a weekly event or there's special events. We do have some studios here in and around the city that host socials. But also what I love about here, which might be different than other cities, is like we do have a really weeknight crowd. And I feel sometimes I go to cities and I'm looking for something on a Tuesday and they're like, no, we only dance on the weekend. So I think, I'm not sure if that's, I can imagine other cities are the same, but I feel from my experience, not all cities have a weeknight type of dancing experience. For like people like me who like doing other things on the weekends, I can still kind of do that social dance itch on the weeknights. So I feel like that's special to Philly. I also, one thing I love about Philly is like when it becomes summertime, there's a lot of more earlier events and outdoor events.
And outdoor, that's what I was about to say.
Yes, it's nice to be outside. It's, I mean, as a follower, it's nice not to put my salsa heels on and just be a little more casual about it. And then, yeah, just something about being outside and rather than like in a very dark club with lights and, you know, you can barely see the person across from you. I remember when it reminds me, one of my first times at an outdoor event, I was like, wow, I've never seen these people in daylight before. I was like, wow, everyone looks so different. Like it's just different. Like, you know, when you're used to seeing someone at the same spot,
right.
And then you see them outdoors, you're like, wow, it's just like a fun experience. So I think Philly offers a lot of that in the summertime, which is a lot of fun if you're visiting, especially for the summer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Shout out Philly, like, cause I came from Portland, Oregon or moved from Portland, Oregon, I should say. And I was just so, I think, enthralled with just the amount of dancing that was out here. The fact that of what you talked about, like the weeknight dancing is great. I don't like that dancing is so late at night is the only thing. I think agree. We're all like, we can all be like, hey, I'm going to make a petition sometime.
We all work in the morning.
Yeah, for real. Like, can we just like at least push it a couple hours? Like 9 to 11 would be great.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I'll sign that. Don't worry.
Yes, please. Yeah, I need your signature for sure. But no, that's great to highlight. Honestly, shout out Philly because Philly's a great city. And I'm so happy to be here. Now, to kind of wrap things up, outside of dancing, to highlight a little bit more about you, what occupies your time? And have you found that outside of social dancing, do you have any principles or practice that you've learned from social dancing that you take out into the, I will say real world, but I'll say really it's just outside of dancing?
So the first question was, what occupies my time outside of social dance? At the moment, I have a baby.
Yeah, so cute.
So Kieran, he's 4 months old. So that occupies a lot of my time. Props to moms out there who social dance. I used to like see y'all before and now I have like mad respect. It's hard out there because they occupy, it's no longer your time. You're on their schedule. So that's been occupying my time. But I also work. Oh, go ahead.
Which, by the way, thank you so much for showing up to this podcast.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I know you have so many like duties.
But I enjoy, I think still doing things that make you happy are important, especially as a mom. But I do have, outside of social dance, I mean, a lot of my work, I would say, occupies my time, but it's all work that I love. Like I contemporary dance, I run a nonprofit, so I curate events throughout the city. And I mean, and outside of work, because, I try to do not things that are work related. I love a good old happy hour. I love music. My husband and I love going to concerts, to festivals. We enjoy that together. We love hosting parties at home. We're very much social bugs. So anything that gets us in a community of people is usually where you'll find us. Nice.
That's beautiful. I love that. If you're comfortable with people finding you online to give you a follow, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. So it's Keila, Keila. I think on Instagram it's like Keila PV, which is short for my last name. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, send me a message. Pretty friendly. And if I didn't respond, bother me.
Also, she has a kid, so she's busy.
There you go. Yeah.
Just be understanding of that. Well, thank you so much, Keila. Thank you for hopping on this episode. This has been a delightful conversation. There's so many gems that you dropped for people. I'm sure that people are going to walk away with hella notes. You haven't seen me, but I've been kind of typing a little bit as you've been talking, things that I'm going to walk away with. And especially tonight, because you're going to be at Lucha Cartel tonight, right?
I will.
Awesome. And it's your birthday, by the way, guys. Happy birthday to Keila.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you so much. Honestly, like to add all the thanks yous, I can't thank you enough. But I appreciate you being here. Have fun tonight. Have the best birthday ever. And hopefully we can get your husband on the podcast because I would love to pick his brain too. That's
amazing. And thank you for having me. This is like super special. that you're providing this platform for people to speak and have these conversations. So I felt really honored when you asked. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anthony, you want to close us out? Let's go. Let's get that dancing going.